Auburn beat San Jose State, and I want to take a moment to tell you what I liked from this game, what I saw that I liked, and where we can improve. So I'll start with what I saw in this game that was promising for Auburn, and then I'll get into the improvements I think we can make going into the game versus Penn State. So starting out, the number one thing that I saw versus San Jose State that I was very impressed with was the way that TJ Finley bounced back after his interception. So we had a very rough start at the during the first half of this ball game. During the first half, we saw a couple of interceptions. We ended the half only 7-10 versus San Jose State. But let's go back to that pick that TJ Finley threw. So before that, including that pick, he was 1 for 5 on passing. So just completely abysmal. It was awful. Rough way to start. The interception he threw was not that bad, but really what impressed me was his ability to come back after that interception. It was a rough pick, and I say that because if he'd thrown it just a little bit, a couple inches to the side, it would have been a reception. But regardless, it was not the worst interception. But what matters the most is how did he come back after that throwing that pick? He, for the most part, he did look down on himself, but then coming back from the interception, Robbie came in, but then coming back from his interception, he really showed that it didn't get him down. He went 12 for 15 after that interception. So he really bounced back, and he showed that this is something you have to see from a quarterback, that even when a bad play happens, it's not going to define you for the entire game. Bad plays happen. But if you let it define you, then you're going to be down the whole game. You're not going to make the plays you should make, and you're going to be in a bad space mentally. And TJ Finley actually showed that he's not going to stay in that bad space. He's not going to stay in that bad headspace, and he can move on. He can make the adjustments and improvements he needs to so that he can have a successful game. And that is what we saw against San Jose State. So that is the biggest win, in my opinion, is the fact that TJ Finley was able to bounce back after throwing his interception. I think the other big shining moment for Auburn was the rush defense. For the most part, San Jose State was not able to rush very well against Auburn. If we look at the stats for this game, on 29 rushing attempts, San Jose State was only able to get 54 yards. So for the most part, Auburn was able to shut down the running game for San Jose State. That was huge. We'll get into the flip side of that in just a minute. But on the positive note, Auburn's defense really held up in the running game, and that is something we need to see, especially as we get closer to SEC play. That is a piece of the game that we have to make sure is solid, and it was good to see that versus San Jose State. Now I'll talk about a few areas where I think we can improve, and the first one is our receiving game. We didn't do nearly as much as I hoped we would, especially versus a team like San Jose State. Our top receiver was Javarius Johnson, but he only had 41 yards in this game. So overall, we did not have a lot of receiving yards compared to what we should have. San Jose State far outpaced us in the receiving game. If you look at the team stats on this one, they had 275 yards to our 168 passing yards. Part of that is our running game was doing better overall, but the fact that our receiving game was not better is a little concerning. The other thing I noticed is that in our top 3 receivers for this game, there was only one wide receiver, and that is Javarius Johnson. Number 2 was John Samuel Shanker, and number 3 was Tank Bigsby. So it is a little concerning that we don't have more of our wide receivers with more of the receiving yardage for this game, and that is something that we need to improve on. Part of that, we had some dropped passes. We had some passes that were a little off, but for the most part, I think that this is on our receivers, and this is something that they can improve on going into the game versus Penn State. So that is the first thing I think we can improve on. The next thing that I think we have to make some progress on overall is just what we saw in the first half. We did not have that team cohesion. So I know that's not something specific, but we didn't have the team cohesion that we've had in other games. We were not working as a unit like we have or like we expected after that game in week 1. And so while that's not a specific area of the game, it is something we need to work on. It's that team unity, that team cohesion, sticking together and working together as a team. But luckily we did see in the second half that got a lot better. Everybody was clicking. The defense looked better. The offense looked better. We just need to see that for 4 quarters and not just 2 quarters. I give you a couple of things that I think went well. I told you some things that I think we need to improve on. But what I want to end with is a question mark, and that question mark is Robbie Ashford. Robbie Ashford is a player on the team that I don't know where we're going to go with him. I think that they're still working on the game plan for Robbie Ashford. In this game, TJ Finley was the better quarterback overall, but Robbie Ashford adds another flavor to the game. He was able... Truly, he was just another running back in the game for the most part. I think he had 1 yard passing overall, but if you go to the rushing yardage, he was our top rusher for the game. He had more rushing yards than Tank Bigsby, Jarquez Hunter, and Damari Alston. So he was the top rusher for the game. So as the coaches are looking at film, I think they're still trying to figure out how they're going to handle Robbie Ashford. I think he did have the chance to possibly get that starting quarterback position in this game. I don't think he earned it. Part of that had to do with the passing game, but I also don't think he got enough opportunities to pass. He threw a pick. He had one other pass that was incomplete. I think it was a drop, and if it had connected, or I don't remember for sure, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if he had connected on that one pass, it would have been a huge reception. But for the most part, Robbie Ashford is showing that he is incredible in the running game. And he adds that layer where you don't know if he's going to hand it off. You don't know if he's going to pass it. And if he runs, he can be gone down that sideline. So Robbie Ashford is the biggest question mark for me. And I'm really interested to see how the coaches use him going into week 3 and then eventually going into SEC play. Those are my thoughts overall for this game. We've got some areas to work on. We've got some areas where we're doing well and we just need to continue to build. But overall, I think the coaches have to figure out this QB situation a little more. Maybe they have. Maybe they have figured it out. And maybe it's TJ Finley is the guy. And they just have to figure out how to work Robbie Ashford in, because if he's the number 1 rusher for Auburn, he has to be in the game. So I'm interested in how this translates to a bigger game like Penn State. And I guess that's something we will see in week 3. Thank you guys for watching this one, and I will see you in the next one.